everybody. Welcome to Indie Film Cafe. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, aka the Blu-ray Hunter, and I'm with
Paul Abrazinza, known as the Moo Cow. Moo.
And James McAdoo.
And James has not actually seen this movie that we're reviewing, so
I'm just kind of
he's just kind of here, just like he was in a couple of the other videos.
He will.
One day he'll probably watch it, but I just saw this last night for the first time. Paul had seen it before, and I think, did you rewatch it so that we could talk about it? And so he rewatched it. I watched it. I wanted to watch it earlier than that, but then I was like thinking, you know what? It would actually be perfect to watch the day before we do the review, so it'd be fresh in my mind and everything. So we watched Frankenstein versus the Creature of Blood Cove. From Blood Cove, I'm sorry. It's William Winkler's, as it says. You know, as it should. William Winkler is the director of Double the Avenger.
Yay!
Apparently, he's done a lot of anime, I want to say, and stuff like that. So he's gone on to do that after these two movies. But I believe these are the only two live-action movies.
I'm afraid so.
If I'm correct. So William Winkler did this movie, and Al Purplewood from Double D Avenger. Plays a big part in this, and he is not Al Purplewood.
No. Larry Butler.
G. Larry Butler was amazing in this movie, by the way. Completely different character, 180 from there, but also still sort of skeezy and fun. Basically, let me read you what it says here, because this actually gives a pretty good plot of it. Near an isolated beach on the California coast, in a laboratory of horror, 3 renegade scientists have resurrected Frankenstein's long-dead monster. The legendary indestructible corpse has come back to life yet again. At the same time, they've biogenically engineered a half-man, half-fish abomination, intending to use both brutes as weapons in the worldwide fight against terrorism. However, disaster strikes when the chemical brainwashing used to control the terrifying beast fails. Instead of stopping terror, these invincible fiends spread terror. The horror begins when the amphibious beast claims its first victims, gorgeous models, and their crew shooting a glamorous photo spread on the beach. Rescued and held hostage. That was kind of funny because that really does pretty much sum up what happened. The survivors of the grisly rampage must find a way to escape both their mad captors and the rampaging monsters and warn the world of the horrific danger. Shot entirely in black and white, William Winkler's Frankenstein vs. the Creature from Blood Cove is a loving homage to the classic horror films of the 40s and the atomic age creature features of the 1950s.
And I have to say, I think that was probably a very good idea to shoot it in black and white like they did. On the one hand, I think it adds to the whole homage of the 40s and 50s kinds of films. But at the same time, I think it had a very practical effect in that it kind of hid some of the makeup and some of the costuming. You could tell probably wasn't very realistic looking. It probably is better in that it was toned out in black and white, and it just would have looked bad in color. So it was probably a wise choice to do that.
Definitely. And another thing that I liked about it was that it wasn't set in the 40s or 50s. It wasn't made like that. It was very much, I guess 2005 is when it was put out. So it was probably shot in about 2004 maybe. And it looks like that, you know, and they talk normal and everything. They don't try to, they don't try to cover anything up and make it look like it's the past at all. Which, I mean, just the idea of it being like that, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Lost Skeleton of Cadaver.
Right, or I was going to say the Chris Mem movie or something like that. Yeah,
Chris Mem movie, except obviously a little bit if Troma did it did one, it has a little bit of that, it's got nudity and it's got no sex, it's just got nudity, it's just got breasts, and stuff.
As horror movies do.
As most horror movies should, right? It's a horror movie.
Well, and it's weird because the monster you would have thought would have been, at least Frankenstein was kind of interested in sex from them, but not the amphibious creature.
Oh, right, no. He is, and there's obviously a creature from the Black Lagoon type creature, and I like that. I thought that was pretty neat. Actually, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I was not sure Larry Butler actually sent the film to me, and as I said when I did my little video about the pickups and stuff, that I just wish I had gotten his autograph. I'd asked him for his autograph when he sent it to me because that would have been cool. But hopefully I'll get to work with him or something, and we'll have to get the chance to him to autograph this, and eventually I'll get Double D Avenger, which I don't own. But I really did enjoy. But I enjoyed this movie more. I don't know. Do you enjoy this movie more than Double D?
No, I enjoyed Double D Avenger a lot more.
Okay.
It was just, it's a lot more silly and it's a lot more funny and it's a lot more fun in my opinion. This one isn't quite made for that. While it's got some humor into it, I don't believe its purpose is to be lighthearted and silly and funny. I think it's more of a traditional horror film in that sense. I think that it definitely has its comedic moments. And I'm sorry I don't remember all of the names of the actors, but the guy who was playing Bella, for example, in Double D Avengers, where he's just playing extremely broad character in that one.
Oh God, he played the cowboy, right?
Right. He plays another extremely broad character. He plays a very, very gay,
flamboyant,
very flamboyant makeup artist, and a lot bigger role, unlike the first one. He really goes to town on this one, and he's like, "Oh, if something happens, I'm just going to pee my panties," and kind of really hams it up and everything. And
I loved him in the movie. I didn't even recognize that he was the same guy.
Right. But that aside, he was really sort of the comic relief. Most everything else was played straight.
Yeah, and William Winkler's in the movie.
Yes.
He plays Bill. I don't know why he gave himself basically his own name, but I think he does that for a couple of people. Like
Mimi's in there. Mimi Mariarchi, who is Pirate Jugs in Double the Avenger, plays a role like a housekeeper or a maid or something, and he calls her Mimi.
Yeah. So I don't know why they did that. I think he was writing the roles for them. Yeah, he kind of did Robert Rodriguez is known for saying that he does that, where he'll say, "Oh, I want to put Willem Dafoe in this movie, so I'm just gonna name the person Willem," and then he never changes it. And so I think that's what ended up happening. Is Bill was like, "I'm gonna put myself in the movie. What can I name my character? Oh, I'll just call myself Bill now."
Right. Or, I know some screenwriters, what they do is they have specific actors or actresses in mind. That's what they name the character actors, so that when they're going through it and they see it in their mind, they know, say, Willem Dafoe is the actor that they want playing, and they're saying the lines because the character's name Willem. That kind of a thing.
That kind of thing. But aside from that, I really enjoyed all the characters. I enjoyed the writing, enjoyed the directing. I mean, there wasn't really, and I can see why because he loves just really, broadly bad movies. Like, he loves that kind of thing. Like, he loves things that are just silly and fun and goofy. And this movie was more serious-minded. This movie was more made for people who love, like, if it weren't for all the nudity, the boobs and stuff, I think Jen would have liked this movie a little bit. I mean, she might still like it, but like this would be more up her alley of this kind of stuff.
Possibly. The main issue I have, it isn't so much that it's necessarily a bad film or anything like that. It's just when you're going for comedy and you're playing everything broad, you can get away with stuff. You can get away with, maybe the plot not making so much sense, or bits and pieces of information that don't really quite make sense. When you're playing it for serious, it's different. It doesn't really resonate right. It's like a flaw will stand out a lot more, to me anyway. So things like, they talk about when they find the Frankenstein monster in the grave, and he's like, he's got to be at least 800 pounds because he's supposed to be 7 feet tall. Well, how the hell did they get him out of the grave? He's like 6 foot down. They don't show that because they have no way of doing that. There's a lot of little story plot holes that, kind of annoyed me, frankly, and that
Frankensteinly.
Well, yeah, and it just, it kind of detracted from my enjoyment of the film. Whereas in Double D Avenger, there was a lot of that stuff too, but I could roll with it because I just didn't care. I was just enjoying it, and it was a lot more fun. On the other hand, the acting in this particular film, I think, was a lot better because I think it was taken seriously. I don't know if G. Larry Butler has been a lead before in other films, but I was quite impressed with his turn in this. I think he really shows that he could carry the lead role in a movie, and his portrayal of the Doctor was quite good. It was not as broad as Al Purplewood, you know.
Yeah, and he's not like, he's not like a character in the
Right.
movie. Like he is a character. He's a doctor or whatever, but he's not the typical thing. So he didn't have like an accent, or he didn't talk like over exaggerating any lines. Everything
Yeah.
was done in a very like subtle and very like real kind of way.
Right, and he's not forced to say a bunch of crappy, weird
Exactly.
puns and goofy double entendres and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually being the character. So I think it allows him to sort of show the acting range that he's got. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciated that. That was very cool.
I enjoyed Larry Butler, and let's talk about the cameos.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God, there were so many
Yeah.
great cameos, so many random cameos. So before we were watching, we were just watching. Hard Rock Zombies.
Hard Rock Zombies.
And
film.
and we did a review of that for the podcast and everything. And there was a character that James thought was Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, he did look like Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, this guy looked like Ron Jeremy, and I think it was Hitler, right?
Yeah, it was
It's
old.
supposed
It
to
was
be old
old
Hitler.
Hitler is what it was.
And so
I could see the confusion there.
maybe a little bit. And so we were watching that, and I started remembering that in this movie, Ron Jeremy's actually in the movie.
Yeah.
Real Ron Jeremy.
And
is
Lloyd
in it.
Kaufman.
And Lloyd Kaufman. And it's funny because I watched the behind the scenes, and apparently both of them were shot on different days and different locations.
Okay, yeah. I
And
could see
they're
that.
both, I believe, different locations. I could be wrong, but I know it was different days. They were like weeks apart from each other, and it looks like the same scene. It looks like the same.
The lighting is a little different. You can tell.
Maybe, but like you really, it was done well enough. I thought that. Yeah, I didn't go. Oh,
Well, it did leave me thinking, God, for a second, I would love to see the two of them together. I wish they had crossed over and had a drink together or something. That would have been fun. But,
I know, right?
it's-
Yeah,
They had them for a certain time, and that was it.
Ron and Lloyd should do a movie together. I would watch that movie.
Hell yeah.
But and then the most random cameo that's in the movie lasts literally for like 10 seconds was Butch Patrick.
Right?
Butch Patrick. Okay, so there's a werewolf that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, for no
I guess
real reason.
the whole idea is Blood Cove has.
They
I
weren't
guess-
in Blood Cove, though. They were in Transylvania. Or they were Castlevania, whatever
No,
that was.
no. It was like Shelvania.
Shelvania, yeah, that's what it was.
Which was supposed to be like Shelly, I guess. Like, yeah,
Right.
you're right. So they're in Shelvania, and so where I guess the Frankenstein monster was buried, and so or the creature that they were gonna dig up and everything. So they went there, and the doctors, and there was a werewolf there. They heard howling.
As
and everything.
happens.
And werewolf comes over, and they shoot him a bunch of times, and I guess they shot him with a silver bullet. Is
Right,
what they
he says
said.
that, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see him ever does he just carry the silver bullets? I don't
Well,
know.
he brought a gun on a plane to Europe and got away with it, which is another one of those little plot hole things. But that's all right. You let it go. But yeah, he shoots him, and then he says, she asks him, what kind of bullets are in there? And he says, silver bullets. He says, just in case.
Yeah. So the werewolf got shot and killed by the silver bullets, and he falls down, and it transforms back into its human form, and it's Butch Patrick,
Dun, da, da.
who only words coming out of his mouth are Yvonne, which was supposed to, the mom from
Yvonne De
Munsters. Yeah.
Martha.
So yeah, Martha.
So
See, that would be funny these days, or
that was
whatever.
pretty cool. And of course, we also got Raven De La Croix, who was, in a Russ Meyer movies, but she also was in Double D Avenger. She was playing the gypsy woman. Who it's funny because she's like, they show up and she's like, "Strangers, go away!" And I'm like, well, if they're strangers, why aren't you telling them in whatever language you speak as opposed to English? You just assume they know English, like right off the bat. Mm-hmm. See, that's the kind of thing, when you're playing for serious. stuff like that, I pick up on. Whereas if it's comedy, I just kind of let it go.
Yeah, if you know it's like silly comedy, you can just let things go because you're like, it doesn't really matter. This is just silly, fun, goofy. I'm gonna just shut my brain off. When it's a serious movie, you take that stuff into consideration or whatever. So,
But that's not the actor's fault. I mean, the actors, they do with what they've got. That's more of a writing issue there. Because, like I said, I think the acting overall with everybody, whether it's more of a main cast member or any of the cameos that pop in, they're all good. They really were.
definitely. So, I guess there was not many other. There's a couple other cameos. There's some porn star, I believe.
Oh,
that was one of the strippers. A couple of the models that were in it were actually like real models from not Playboy, but maybe I think one of them had been in Playboy.
Silver something, I forget her name. Silver Sable or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. She
makes
was
sense.
what?
Nothing.
She was okay, but I mean, literally all it was her stripping on stage.
Right.
I mean, I'm like, did they just go to her show and then just film it? Probably not, but it was just.
Yeah, it's interesting because clearly in Double the Avenger, William Winkler is hinting at a lot of stuff, and he's there's boobs play a huge role in that film, whereas in this particular film, it's not really so much about the boobs at all, and yet you're seeing a lot more of it in this particular film,
Yeah,
and more
there
than
is.
that too, because they take the bottoms off too.
They take their bottoms off too, and it was just. I was like, okay. I thought it was going to be a loving homage to the 40s and 50s, so I didn't think there was going to be that.
Right.
But then I was like, it's a William Winkler movie.
Right, and then his character is playing a photographer for Frisky Kitty, some kind of TNA magazine. So that's where that whole thing
Sounds
comes
like a
from.
James Bond.
I know, it's silly.
And and so the funniest thing is the guy who runs the thing, the boss is like, I don't care about, I don't care that there's a monster out there that you say. I need the more pictures. Go.
Right.
And he's like, well, I don't think the model's going to go. And he's like, go get another model. It's like, what?
Right, this is LA. There's the swing a dead cat, you can't help but hit bikini models.
I know, and they'll go and do anything. So they had to hide. They said it was like a crazy homeless person that's out there. So just be careful of the crazy homeless person. And then it turned, when they're like, it's getting late, we better get going. We haven't been attacked by anybody yet. So she's like, oh, I want to go play in the water, and
Swim.
I want to go swim where the creature is.
Always swimming.
Yes,
always.
it is. And then it's like, you cut to the guy in the suit in a tank, clearly, and then you cut to the beach where the water is because, he just pops out. You can't actually show him emerging from the water because it's going to take him 10 minutes to climb out of there and actually
And it's probably
move us up
really
there.
cold and stuff too.
Yeah, it's California.
Might be unsafe in the suit.
Probably.
Yeah,
The
probably.
suit was pretty damn good. In fact, I was pretty impressed with the amphibious suit.
I did too.
The Frankenstein thing was kind of okay.
It was
looked
okay.
weird.
It didn't look like what I would normally guess
No.
with Frankenstein.
But the suit was awesome.
And there's Frankenstein's bride too.
Right.
really?
It was pretty interesting that they had, but she was in she was flashbacks with him, which is a little confusing.
That was confusing, and then I felt that Frankenstein himself, the actual scientist, he's a bit of a deus ex machina. He kind of comes in, and he's not more than just a flashback. He's actually physically interacting
Like
with
a
them and
spirit.
causing them to do things.
Yeah,
and,
he's the spirit.
I wasn't wild about that. either.
Victor Frankenstein was a
Yes.
ghost?
Yeah, the ghost
Yeah.
of Victor Frankenstein, and he's just, but he comes in and he just kind of tells them at first he's just there. He's not actually doing anything. He's just kind of looking and Larry Butler's character, the doctor, is just like, what are you doing here? Leave me alone. And
Right.
everybody's like, what are you looking at? Then later he's actually controlling things and doing stuff with
Right.
it.
He kind of moves from being that sort of, that scene in Macbeth where he's, the only one seeing the ghost there. And it's kind of like a reflection of his madness to actually interacting with the other ones. And he's stealing the breath from the monsters and from Larry Butler's character and from a couple other things. And to me, that's kind of where it sort of crossed the line. And then the whole other thing about where they're like, we took Victor Frankenstein's theory where he's resurrecting the dead, and controlling their brain patterns. I'm like, well, wait a second, where did those controlling the mind stuff come from?
there's
That's
just
not
a
in the
little
book.
bit.
It's not Victor.
That's not in there.
It's just a little bit too much.
And then the little plastic thing where they're like, okay, here's the resurrection material. We know it's over here. It's like, what?
What?
Yeah, there's a lot of little things like that that really kind of messed it up for me. But, you know, that's just the story-wise. Like I said, the actual performances were really good. I like the way that it was shot. And like I said, there was some good production in there too. That one monster suit was way cool.
I think generally, I generally liked the writing. I generally did. Now there was, of course, little plot holes and little issues that come along the way, but I think that comes with any independent film that's really trying to homage something that they really enjoy. There's going to be those things that the independent filmmakers are not going to like think about when they're making it, that they're going to look back on maybe later and be like, oh dang, I wish I caught that earlier or something.
And I don't know whether your copy has it, but mine has the commentary.
Yes, and I wish I listened to it.
And I have not listened to that yet. So I do. This is like the third time I've seen it. I do need to go back and watch it with the commentary because I'm sure he probably addresses some of the things in there. But I'd love to hear more about what happened with this film, and with I'd love to talk with William Winkler himself at some point, because really after this film he does more, like you said, into anime stuff, and I was kind of hoping that there'd be more, because Double the Avenger came out. I loved it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get the next thing he puts out. He puts out this. I grabbed it and I was like, okay, this was all right, but I was kind of hoping for something a little bit better, and I was kind of waiting.
You're looking for like a Double D Avenger 2, like Double DD Avenger?
Yeah, or Triple D Avenger, something. Yeah. But another film, basically, is what I was looking at. I was kind of hoping that there was going to be something else past this, but I don't know whether this just didn't work, or if he found it personally or professionally disappointing, or he just, changed his focus and just
career
went elsewhere, or what
like
the deal
he
is.
fall in love more with anime than he did with live
Could
action.
be.
And you know what? Directing cartoons is probably a lot easier than directing.
Well,
in a way, like in the sense of like directing actors. And
Right.
stuff.
And he I know he comes from a background where he's involved with and loved comics. So comics are a lot closer to anime than they are dealing with real actors and live actors and all that.
Yeah.
So it may be that he just was more comfortable doing that. It may have been a money thing. I don't know. But there's an interesting interview in there that I would love at some point. If you ever see him at Texas Frightmare or some of the other things, I'd love to get him on your show and maybe talk to him, or have him on Indie Film Cafe.
I don't know if he's ever gone to conventions or not, but if he does,
should.
I would love to meet him. So I'm sure Larry could hook us up
And
with that.
that's just it. Larry has worked on a number of his stuff, including some of the anime. So he probably has some inside scoop on this. So would love to talk with him about it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad that he got a chance to show off some of his range. And that's just it. I mean, if you only judged G. Larry Butler by what you saw in Double D Avenger, you might think that he was this sort of guy that was just nothing but, over the top. But clearly he's got a lot more to him.
Yes, and we totally, we love him in this studio. We think, honestly, I don't know if I said it in the podcast for Double D Avenger, but Al Purplewood was probably my favorite character, because it was a lot of fun, and this one was a lot of fun too, but it was completely different characters. As I said, it's a 180 from Al Purplewood, and like I think that he should continue to do everything, you know, and I hope to work with him soon.
Absolutely.
Like, and things like that. So, but I think that's it. What would you for this one? We do 1 to 5 rating. 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. What would you rate this movie?
I would say a 3.5.
3.5.
It's a good, solid effort. I would like to have seen more.
I would actually go with 4.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was
fair.
great, and it was a lot of fun. It was just not. It was not what and yours is NA, not applicable.
Yeah, not applicable. That's great.
Some of the fight scenes
Juncture.
kind of went on for a
Maybe.
bit too. That they could have cut back a little bit on that.
Maybe a little bit on that too. I agree. They went on a little longer than I.
But there's
thought,
a lot of good stuff in there, and like I said, the acting from pretty much everyone was really good.
And that ending was okay. With them being ghosts and fighting each other at the end, I thought that was kind of cute. But I was just, but then the doctor comes in to like separate them, and I'm like, what are you doing? You know, it was just silly at the end. But I feel like William Winkler, I think if he had done it like as like Double D Avenger style and made it really over the top and silly and goofy,
It would have been fun.
I think it would have been a little bit more fun.
Yeah, but I'd like to see more. You know, who knows? Give the man some bucks. Maybe he'll throw something together.
Exactly. So if you get a chance, I believe you can get this on Amazon or any place like that. It's called Frankenstein versus the creature from Blood Cove, a loving homage to classic cinema of yesteryear.
Right.
by
So if you
Eat
like
My
old
Brains.
school 50s monster mashup movies with a mad doctor and a little bit of nudity tossed in there too, go for it. You know,
Go for it. I think you'll enjoy
you
this.
could do far worse. That's for sure.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
seen far worse.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for checking this out. I hope you enjoyed it.
Peace
Bye.
out. Bye.
See ya.